Good morning, everybody. Actually, yes, it is still morning for just a little bit longer. I'm here to read you chapter 6 of the Trumpet of the Swan. I'm very excited to get into the next chapter of our book. In chapter 5, we read about Louis. The chapter was called Louis, and Louis had a really important conversation with his dad, and he learned something about himself. And he has some feelings about that, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. But first, I want you to know that we're going to have some new terms in chapter 6. The first term has 2 words in it. It's called nesting site. Nesting site is one of your vocabulary terms for chapter 6. The next one is altitude. And be careful, it's not attitude, it's altitude. Then elevated. I'm going to give you a hint on elevated, tell you something interesting about it. In this chapter, it has more than one meaning. It isn't just a word that has more than one meaning. It has more than one meaning in this chapter. So we're going to hear the word elevated more than once, and each time we hear it, it's going to mean something a little bit different. Similar, but different. So that's pretty cool. And the last word is retract. We're going to hear the word retract in chapter 6. Well, let's jump right in. Chapter 6 is called Off to Montana. Now, you remember Montana is where Sam lives with his dad, but we found out that that's also where the I said the wrong word, swans are going to go. All right, let's read more. Chapter 6, Off to Montana. At the end of the summer, the cob gathered his family around him and made an announcement. "Children," he began, "I have news for you. Summer is drawing to a close. Leaves are turning red, pink, and pale yellow, and soon the leaves will fall." So now this isn't like our season right now. I'm looking out my window. When the book started, spring was starting just like it is for us right now in North Carolina. But now time has passed, and now summer is ending and it's almost fall. "The time has come for us to go." "Go?" cried all the cygnets except Louis. "Certainly," replied their father. "You children are old enough to learn the facts of life, and the principal fact of our life right now is this: we can't stay in this marvelous location much longer." "Why not?" cried all the cygnets except Louis. "Because summer is over," said the cob, "and it is the way of swans to leave their nesting site at summer's end and travel south to a milder place where the food supply is good." Interesting. Nesting site. They have to leave their nesting site. "I know that you are fond of this pretty pond, this marvelous marsh, these reedy shores and restful retreats. You have found life pleasant and amusing here. You have learned to dive and swim underwater. You have enjoyed our daily recreational trips when we formed in line, myself in front swimming gracefully like a locomotive, and your charming mother bringing up the rear like a caboose. Day long you have listened and learned. You have avoided the odious otter and the cruel coyote. You have listened to the little owl that says, cuckoo, cuckoo. You have heard the partridge say, quit, quit. At night you have dropped off to sleep to the sounds of frogs, the voices of the night. But these pleasures and pastimes, these adventures, these games and frolics, these beloved sights and sounds must come to an end. All things come to an end. It is time for us to go." Whew. The dad talks a lot, doesn't he? That's okay. That's his character. That's one of his character traits. Let's keep reading. "Where will we go?" cried all the cygnets except Louis. "Where will we go? Coho, coho. Where will we go? Coho, coho." "We will fly south to Montana," replied the cob. "What is Montana?" asked all the cygnets except Louis. "What is Montana, banana, banana? What is Montana, banana, banana?" It sounds like little kids, doesn't it? It's funny. "Montana," said their father, "is a state of the Union. And there, in a lovely valley surrounded by high mountains, are the Red Rock Lakes, which nature has designed especially for swans. In these lakes, you will enjoy warm water arising from hidden springs. Here, ice never forms, no matter how cold the night. In the Red Rock Lakes, You will find other trumpeter swans as well as the lesser waterfowl, the geese and the ducks. There are few enemies, no gunners, plenty of muskrat houses, free grain, games every day. What more can a swan ask in the long, long cold of winter? Louis listened to all of this in amazement. He was warmed. Sorry, that is not what that says. He wanted to ask his father how they would learn to fly and how they would find Montana. Even after they learned to fly, he began to worry about getting lost, but he wasn't able to ask any questions. He just had to listen. One of his brothers spoke up. "Father," he said, "you said we would fly south. I don't know how to fly. I've never been up in the air." "True," replied the cob, "but flying is largely a matter of having the right attitude. Plus, of course, good wing feathers. Flying consists of 3 parts. First, the takeoff, during which there is a lot of fuss and commotion, a lot of splashing and rapid beating of the wings. Second, the ascent, or gaining of altitude. There's our word, altitude. Altitude. Gaining of altitude. This requires hard work and fast wing action. Third, the leveling off, the steady, elevated flight, high in the air. Elevated, elevated. Wings beating slower now, beating strongly and regularly, carrying us swiftly and surely from zone to zone as we cry, "Coho, coho," with all the earth stretched out far below. "It sounds very nice," said the cygnet, "but I'm not sure I can do it. I might get dizzy way up there if I look down." "Don't look down," said his father. "Look straight ahead and don't lose your nerve, because swans do not get dizzy. They feel wonderful in the air. They feel exalted." "What does exalted mean?" asked the cygnet. I gotta put that on the board, but that's okay. "It means you feel strong, glad, firm, high, proud, successful, satisfied, powerful, and elevated." There's elevated again, but that time it meant something a little different. So when you look up the word, you'll find out it can mean more than one thing. The first time it was talking about them flying. The second time it was talking about their feelings. It was a feeling word. Louis listened to all this with great attention. The idea of flying frightened him. "I won't be able to say coho," he thought. "I wonder whether a swan can fly if he has no voice and can't say coho." "I think," said the cob, "the best plan is for me to demonstrate flying to you. Observe everything I do. Watch me pump my neck up and down before the takeoff. Watch me test the wind by turning my head this way and that. The takeoff must be into the wind. It's much easier that way. Listen to the noise I make trumpeting. Watch how I raise my great wings. See how I beat them furiously as I rush through the water with my feet, going like mad. This frenzy will last for a couple 100 feet, at which point I will suddenly be airborne. My wings still chopping the air with terrific force, but my feet no longer touching the water. Then watch what I do. Watch how I stretch my long, white, elegant neck out ahead of me until it has reached its full length. Watch how I retract my feet. Retract my feet. Get where I was. Watch how I retract my feet and allow them to stream out behind, full length, until they extend beyond my tail. Hear my cries as I gain the upper air and start trumpeting. See how strong and steady my wing beat has become. Then watch me bank and turn, set my wings, and glide down. And just as I reach the pond again, watch how I shoot my feet out in front of me and use them for the splashdown. And just as I read that part. Use them for the splashdown as though they were a pair of water skis. Having watched all this, then you can join me and your mother too, and we will all make a practice flight together until you get the hang of it. Then tomorrow we will do it again, And instead of returning to the pond, we will head south to Montana. Are you ready for my exhibition flight? Ready, cried all the cygnets except Louie. Very well, here I go, cried the cob. As the others watched, he swam downwind to the end of the pond, turned, tested the wind, pumped his neck up and down, trumpeted, and after a rush of 200 feet, got into the air and began gaining altitude. There's that word again. His long white neck stretched out ahead, his big black feet stretched out behind. His wings had great power. The beat slowed as he settled into a sustained flight. All eyes watched. Louie was more excited than he had ever been. I wonder if I can really do it, he thought. Suppose I fail, then the others will fly away, and I will be left here all alone on this deserted pond, with winter approaching, with no father, no mother, no sisters, no brothers, and no food to eat when the pond freezes over. I will die of starvation. I'm scared. He told himself a big story, didn't he? He told himself a big, scary story in his head. Let's see what happens. In a few minutes, the cob glided down out of the sky and skidded to a stop on the pond. They all cheered, "Coho, coho, beep, 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 beep." All but Louie. He had to express his approval simply by beating his wings and splashing water in his father's face. All right, said the cob, you've seen how it's done. Follow me and we'll give it a try. Extend yourselves to the utmost. Do everything in the proper order. Never forget for a moment that you are swans and therefore excellent flyers, and I'm sure all will be well. They all swam downwind to the end of the pond. They pumped their necks up and down. Louie pumped his harder than any of the others. They tested the wind by turning their heads this way and that. Suddenly, the cob signaled for the start. There was a tremendous commotion, wings beating, feet racing, water churned to a froth, and presently, wonder of wonders, there were 7 swans in the air, 2 pure white ones and 5 dirty gray ones. Remember, they're not really dirty, that's just the color they are, dirty gray. The takeoff was accomplished, and they started gaining altitude. Louie was the first of the young cygnets to become airborne, ahead of all his brothers and sisters. The minute his feet lifted clear of the water, he knew he could fly. It was a tremendous relief, as well as a splendid sensation. Boy, he said to himself, I never knew flying could be such fun. This is great. This is sensational. This is superb. I feel exalted, and I'm not dizzy. I'll be able to get to Montana with the rest of the family. I may be defective, but at least I can fly. The 7 great birds stayed aloft about a half an hour, then returned to the pond, the cob still in the lead. They all had a drink to celebrate the successful flight. Next day, they were up early. It was a beautiful fall morning with mist rising from the pond and the trees shining in all colors. Toward the end of the afternoon, as the sun sank low in the sky, the swans took off from the pond and began their journey to Montana. This way, cried the cob. He swung to his left and straightened out on a southerly course. The others followed, trumpeting as they went. And here's a picture of all 7 of them. Remember, the cob is in the front and the mom is in the back. And which cygnet got in the air first? Do you remember? Yeah, Louie did. Louie is a great flyer. As they passed over the camp where Sam Beaver was, so this all happened before Sam and his dad left. They're still there. As they passed over the camp where Sam Beaver was, Sam heard them and ran out. He stood watching as they grew smaller and smaller in the distance and finally disappeared. What was it? Asked his father when Sam returned indoors. Swans, replied Sam. They're headed south. We'd better do the same, said Mr. Beaver. I think Shorty will be here tomorrow to take us out. Mr. Beaver lay down on his bunk. What kind of swans were they? He asked. Trumpeters, said Sam. That's funny, said Mr. Beaver. I thought trumpeter swans had quit migrating. I thought they spent the whole year on the Red Rock Lakes where they are protected. Most of them do, replied Sam, but not all of them. It was bedtime. Sam got out his diary. This is what he wrote. I heard the swans tonight. They are headed south. It must be wonderful to fly at night. I wonder whether I'll ever get to see any of them again. How does a bird know how to get from where he is to where he wants to be? That's a great question. Well, chapter 7 is called School Days. So it's fall. That's when school years typically start. So my prediction is that Sam's going to be headed back to school. Chapter 7, School Days. It is also possible that it isn't Sam going to school, but Louie or the Swans. Maybe that's what E.B. White means when he says school days. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Thanks so much for reading with me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.